Good day, everyone. Welcome to the part four of the series of how to pass the IG2 practical of the Nebosh IGC examination or program. I have had three videos so far. Part one, I'm talking about the part one of the practical, part two, talking about the part two of the practical, and part three, talking about the part three of the practical. Practical has just four parts, so this would be the final video in this series. Thank you very much for watching the ones you've watched so far. I hope I have been able to help. So basically, like I said in the previous video, the part three, your risk assessment, the practical is basically to um, for your examiner, rather, to look at a bunch of things, your observation skills. Basically, in general, they're trying to test your ability as a competent risk assessor, and then your ability to write a report to the management, not just give us a risk assessment. Also, you are going to need to defend these observations. That is what the entire project is about. So they're trying to check your observation skills. Majorly in the part two, your ability to give recommendations, your ability to see current controls and determine if there are any additional controls that will be needed. So part four has five criteria. Part four is one of the easiest part, I think. In the practical, we're going to discuss as usual these different criteria and how best to go about meeting the criteria. So the first criteria is to set a date for your review. The first section in part four is your date of review. Now, there are two things you need to do here. You need to give a date, a specific date for your review. So don't just say that they should review it in 6 months. They should review the assessment in 6 months, and that would be March 12, 2021, March 12, 2022, like that. And that date should also be in correlation with the date that you've put in your part two as the date of your assessment. So if you're going to say 1 year, go back and check the date and then calculate the year so that you give an accurate date. Okay, so you're setting the review date, and then you're also going to state the reason for that date. Why? Now, there are a bunch of reasons that you could have. Now, you cannot just say that they should review in 3 months because you think they should review in 3 months. The accepted reasons are maybe by legislations, by standards that you have to cite, or by the company's policy. Now, if you don't know how to go about this, basically just say that they should review in a year, as that's the policy of your company, to avoid any kind of gray area. However, there are some assessment sites that would naturally give you a reason for review. For example, if I have decided to select a demolition renovation site, and when I carried out my risk assessment, they were in the demolition stage. So I can say something like, I recommend this assessment to be reviewed the next 3 months because according to their project plan, this project is going to move from the demolition stage to the renovation stage. Like I said before, if you do not have any solid reason, just say you should review it in a year, as that is the policy of the organization. Now, after doing this, you can also add that this risk assessment can be reviewed before your recommended date. If there's a number of things, say there's a change in the work process, change in equipment, or change in relevant legislation, as these things would normally lead to a review of your risk assessment in general. Okay, so the second section in this part four is talking about communication. Who are you going to communicate the report of this risk assessment to, and how are you going to communicate it to them? You're looking at for at least a minimum of 3 categories of people. You would be given the report of this risk assessment to. You can select the management of the organization. You can select the workers of that organization, and then you can also select the people that you've given the responsibility in your part 2 as the categories of people that would need to know the summary. If they have a safety committee in that organization, you might also need to give it to the safety committee. Depending on the organization, you might also need to give a summary to contractors on the site. So your organization and areas selected for your risk assessment will determine who and how to communicate. However, you're doing basically for each category of persons, you're doing 3 things. You're going to state that category of persons. For example, I'm going to give this risk assessment. I'm going to give in a report of the risk assessment to the management. That's the who. You're going to be stating how. I will be sending it to their email, their company email address, or I will call for a meeting for the workers or for the management so that I can give them a report of this risk assessment. I will put it in the company's intranet so everyone can have an access to. For the workers, I could say that my how would be to include it in the next pep talk or toolbox talks for the workers. I could say that I will put the report a summary of the report on the company's notice board so that the workers would have access to it. So basically, you state the word, you state the how, and then finally, for each category of persons also, you state the why. So why do I want to give a summary or my report to the management? So that they know the unsafe act and unsafe conditions on the side, they see the recommended controls, and then they are able to allocate roles and responsibility and resources to ensure the implementation of these control measures and that you have recommended. Why I want the workers to know is that the summary would contain unsafe practices from these workers themselves and the control measures that I've recommended to reduce or eliminate these unsafe practices so that they don't put themselves and others at risk. I will send a copy to the responsible persons so that they know the particular actions that they have a responsibility to implement, and then they do their job as recommended. So basically, that's what you're going to be doing for that second section. The very last section is the follow-up. How are you going to make sure that the organization actually does implement the control measures that you've recommended? We've recommended control, we give them time scales, we've communicated the risk assessment. How are we going to make sure that the organization actually does implement this control? We have to do follow-up. Different ways. I could say that I will schedule another visit, a supervisory visit in a month, and then I will check the control measures within that 1 month time frame, see if they've been implemented. For those that have not been implemented, I follow up with the management, follow up with the CEO, follow up with the finance manager to make sure that the problem is not allocation of resources or the problem is not allocation of manpower. I make sure that I put all of this in place to make sure that those controls are implemented. Basically, that's how I follow up. I could also say that I would schedule to send mails to the responsible persons, maybe a day to the time scale and also a day after. A day to remind them and a day after to confirm that they've been implemented. The same thing happens if they're not implemented. I follow up to make sure that this implementation goes on. So, excuse me, basically, I just make sure that I follow up with this risk assessment. I check as much as possible to make sure that all these controls are. So, and that would be the end of your practical. It's very, very time consuming. You need to pay attention. Don't get tired, and then you end up just forgetting one particular criteria. Once you're done, use your checklist. Your learning partner should have sent you a checklist. Use the checklist to mark yourself because your examiner is going to be using the same checklist. And then the criteria on the checklist, they're going to be checking if you meet this criteria. So you yourself do that check sincerely on your work. And if there's no gray area, there's nothing to add, then you know that you have done a very, 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 very good job. So I hope that in these 4 videos, I've been able to an extent, shed more light on this section of the risk assessment. So I recommend that you be very, very careful when you're selecting the organization. Make sure that before you select the organization, off the top of your head, you look at this 4 different parts of your assessment and you see that the organization can fit has information that can fit into this different part. It doesn't matter where you pick, it matters the kind of information that you provide. You can do assessments in a car wash, warehouse, restaurant. You can do it anywhere. Just make sure that that environment has enough information and you're able to maximize this information from that particular organization. So thank you very much once again. We've come to the end of this series. Like I said, I hope it helps. If you have any additional information that could help everyone watching my video, please put that in the comment section. If there's anything I've omitted, please help me put that in the comment section. And if there's any questions that you have, I will be watching, and then hopefully I will be able to give you answers to this question. Thank you very much once again. My name is Kayode Eti. I am a safety trainer and consultant.